My dear student, now we have to conclude the schema of strategic selection. As we discussed a lot of concept about the strategic selection and selection policy items, now we have to discuss the strategic selection in terms of a schema. So in the next slide, you will see a schema of the strategic selection. If you will see it on this slide, first of all, there is an organizational mission. And after the organizational mission, there are organizational objectives. Organizational objectives would lead to the strategy, because strategy would be emerged from the organizational strategic objectives. And then strategy would interact with the culture, it would interact with the structure of the organization, it would interact with the system, and it would interact with the people. So there are four major components to which strategy would interact, or it would lead to the different concept. One is the culture of the organization, another is the structure of the organization, then is the system of the organization, and then is the people of the organization. These all four things must need to be linked, must need to be aligned with the strategy of the organization. And strategy need to be linked with organizational objectives, and organizational objective must need to be linked with organizational mission. So this is an important concept which you need to keep in mind while discussing the strategic selection schema. Then, based on that strategy and based on the interaction of a strategy with the culture, system, structure, and the people, there would be a job analysis. We have to analyze any particular job. And when you will analyze any particular job, there are two main outcomes. One outcome is a job description, and second outcome is a job specification. My dear students, you have understood these concepts also in the topic of recruitment process. So here we are discussing these concepts in the perspective of selection procedures, in the perspective of strategic selection. So job description is the one outcome of a job analysis, and job specification is another outcome of a job analysis. In job description, we include job titles. There are duties and responsibilities performed by the person. Then there are relationship of that job with the rest of the jobs in the hierarchy, and then the working condition. These concepts are important. And then another is the job specification. This is different from job description. In job specification, we include three major things. One is the knowledge, another is the skills, another is the ability. And along with the knowledge, skills, and ability means KSA, we will also include experience, we will also include personality traits. So personality, experience, knowledge, skills, and abilities, these are the major components of the job specification. So job description and job specification would lead to two major things. Job description will lead to the criteria, and job specification will lead to the predictors. Just look at the criteria and the predictor. Criteria facilitate the indication of a criteria necessary for the job success. There are some particular criteria for the job success. What it can be? It can be the performance appraisal data of an employee, that how employee is performing in one particular specific period of time. Then there are production data as well, production output data. Then there are safety data which also determine that how the job is successful. Then the sales data, that how much sales targets need to be achieved. And then attendance data, that what is the status of employee absenteeism in the organization. Then the employee turnover data, that how many employees are leaving the organization in last 1 year and last 6 months. Then there is a customer satisfaction data which also determine that how much customers are satisfied with your performance in the organization. Then the promotions, that how much promotion someone get in the last couple of years. And then success in the training and the length of the service. These all are the different indicators which will decide that how successful you are in the job. But how these criteria would be predicted? There are some predictors which predict that criteria. And those predictors obviously include knowledge, skill, measure of ability, previous work, data from applicant, data from employment interview, data from performance appraisal, and the medical examination. So these predictors would actually predict the criteria. If you are not highly qualified, if you don't have any particular skills, obviously there are chances that your production data would be low, would be poor. Your sales target would be not achieved. Your attendance data would be very bad. Your turnover data would be high. your customer satisfaction data would be poor. So all these predictors would actually predict the criteria necessary for the job success. So these both components have a very close relationship with each other. And then we will link all of that predictors and criteria with the criteria for job success and with the predictors of job success. Criteria for job success would tell you how successful, unsuccessful your job performance is to be measured. And the predictors of the job success would tell what factors can be used to predict successful, unsuccessful job performance. So these factors need to be measured. These factors need to be considered in your selection procedures. If you would consider these particular characteristics, then you would be better able to select the person in your organization. And this criteria for job success and criteria for job predictors would determine the relationship between criterion and predictors. So there is a strong relationship between the criterion and predictors, and it would lead to the two major things. One is a valid, if it is a strong relationship, and if it is unvalid, if there is no relationship or a very weak relationship. And if the criteria would be valid, if the relationship would be stronger, then obviously we would accept predictors, and if the criteria would be invalid, we would reject predictors. So we have to accept predictors and we have to reject predictors based on the whole schema of the strategic selection process. In conclusion, my dear student, strategic selection procedure will lead to hiring of best people, best possible candidate for your organization. So if you would follow the strategic selection process, if you would link all of your selection policies, procedures, activities with organizational business objectives, you would be in better position to hire the best possible candidate for your organization. You always stick with a strategic selection process rather than only selection process.